get going here, and I welcome you all for joining us. And I caught a little flack last week for mentioning Smuggler's Notch Distillery as being the sole supplier of hand sanitizer. And I will also remind you, I got a notice earlier that Bar Hill is Bar Hill Distillery has also shifted over to supplying hand sanitizer. So if you're all looking for it, there's two good resources, Smuggler's Notch and Bar Hill. They also have other products if you haven't figured that out yet. Again, the rules will be here as we get going. I'll probably mute you out, and we'll go from there for about 10 minutes. I'm going to say a few words, do an introduction, and then I'm going to turn the meeting over to Matt and Tess, our government affairs team. I have to commend them on Wednesday, I'd say it was Wednesday afternoon. I said I wanted a white paper on what recovery UI and everything else looks like, and everybody kind of looked at me with a strange face at that point. By Friday, 20,000 pages, and I commend them. In the course of 2 days, they got me a good summary they'll share with you on the what UI looks like, what the family leave looks like, and possibly what other funding sources look like. And we'll focus on that. We're doing these on Wednesday and Friday, and I hope they're helpful to you all. Wednesday at 2, 3, and 4, and Fridays at 10 and 2. I hope they're helpful. I am trying to communicate everything we know going forward. At this point, everything we know going forward is that, and just got off the phone with the Agency of Transportation. At this point going forward, they have on the books to do 101 or 110 projects this season. They have bidding coming out. I believe 20 of the projects have already been put out there. The other 80 or so will be put out, and those projects at 101 or 110 will be supplemented with some more. So there is a large number of projects that are going to be put on the board and are going to be put out. So keep your eyes on the bidding site within AOT. We've also been following, and I know there's a lot of discussion over this essential and critical, and you got to be able to pass that with a straight face. Our whole purpose right now in this lockdown is not only is the health and safety of our employees, not only today, but 6 or 8 weeks from today. We want to ensure that we have a manageable and a level workforce throughout the season, and if we don't suffer a little bit right now, we will be suffering throughout the season. Numbers are numbers, but I want to remind you that since Monday, our numbers have actually doubled across the state. We went from about 90 or so cases, confirmed cases. We're up to right around 185 today. We have in the last 10 days, we have increased tenfold. We're at 19 people 10 days ago, and we're at 190 today. Deaths have doubled since Monday. We've gone from 4 or 5 on Monday up to 10 today. Chittenden County, just for your understanding, Chittenden County has exploded, and one of the and again, I know that's a populated area and there's a lot of population, so it absorbs it. But one of the thoughts here, and we are still holding on to April 15th as our back to work date. We are holding on to it hard. Administration's trying to hold on to it. AOT's holding on to it. And BGS, the groups are holding on to that April 15th date. If we hear or feel there's anything different coming down the pike, we will let you know. I'll also tell you, with Chittenden County exploding, you could very well hear down the road that they're going to lift the ban on other parts or parts of the state that aren't seeing or being deemed a hot spot. You can see the lift of the ban there, and we maintain that ban or no work ban inside that Chittenden County arena. The other piece, and I said, I know New Hampshire has a liberal work order in process. Massachusetts has a liberal work order in process, and New York does. From what I understand, for those of you that are concerned, is that New Hampshire right now will possibly be in the same state we are by Friday of next week, and it could be earlier. There's a great deal of pushback with what the governor did yesterday. I don't think Massachusetts is far behind us from everything I've heard. They've already stopped work in hot spots that within the state. So I don't think this is going to be contained to just Vermont. It's going to be throughout New England, and it's coming at us quite rapidly and changing about every hour. The other piece, on a high note, I will just tell you that H.R. 748, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act that went through, brings two, I'm going to say this and I'll find out I'm wrong, but $200 million of relief to Vermont. Within that relief, there's $5 million in community service block grants. There's $20 million in transportation emergency relief, and there's $10 million going to the state's airports. That there is approximately $100 million from everything I've been able to see that are going to go into some of the education upgrades that are needed out there, some of the transportation projects, again, stimulus into that, and some of the building and general services projects. So if we can hold on, we will have positioned ourselves in a very good place to be able to work throughout the time that these funds become available. We see that coming. There's other corona relief pieces coming that we're staying on top of, and I know it's a tough time. I know it's a hard time right now. We will make it. Let's stay together. And I also understand your questions and why is X working and how come I can't, why is somebody digging a cellar hole. I'll tell you, I think the supply chains will dry up and that will stop in some fashion about the first of the week next week. What's that? Okay, so with that, we'll mute people. So we will see that stopping in some fashion. There are people that are still working in New Hampshire and transporting their people into New Hampshire. I understand that, and that's good. You're continuing to work, but remember the protocols that are in effect within Vermont, and we'll keep that going. I'll pass this over to Matt and Tess in half a second. If anybody has any questions of me, please feel free to ask. If you have a question of me, please ask now. Anybody have anything you want to ask me? I will. Yeah, go ahead.
This is Tim here. How are you?
Not bad, Tim. How you doing, man?
I'm bad. Hey, what happened to the V-Trains bid this morning? Do you know?
By
3 jobs that were letting this morning, and they got.
so we were on the phone at noon with V-Trans, in particular talking about that and some other things going. The what V-Trans and what we're trying to do with some of the projects coming out, those V-Trans projects had very specific finish dates to them, which if we have a problem, we're going to be starting a little later, and if we have a problem with the workforce or the supply chain throughout the summer, we shouldn't be penalized for not completing on time. So what we're doing right now, and Chris Magnan and Brent Tewksbury have taken it on their shoulders, what we're doing right now is trying to put in place some more liberal, agreed upon completion dates, as well as the ability to negotiate this as you go along to get to those completion dates.
That's a good answer.
Huh?
That's a good answer.
They'd say I'm becoming a politician here. I'm not. I'm speaking very honestly. Those completion dates scared the hell out of everybody, and I don't think we could meet them.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? We have been in direct contact with administration. As much as I don't like some of the folks there, I'll say it. As much as I disagree or don't like some of the folks there, I think they're doing an admirable job, and they are really keeping us informed as to what we can expect and how we can expect it. It's been a roller coaster for all of us. We do have a hotline if you all have a pen. We do have a hotline. If you want to text, it's probably your quickest response. If you want to text us on our texting hotline, it's 802-793-5659. If you want to call us on a verbal hotline, our COVID verbal or telephone line is 802-229-9189. Again, those phones are manned pretty much, I'm going to say 24 hours a day. Debbie won't appreciate you calling at night, but we'll make it work. I hope we're of help. I hope we're of service. The other thing we're thinking or trying to do internally, I'm just going to run a quick ad, is I believe on Tuesday we will run a fall protection training course just this same way. We'll do a fall protection training course on Tuesday for 2 hours in the morning, and we'll send you all out a little notice that it's coming. And on Tuesday mornings, maybe Thursday mornings, we'll be doing some computer-based training for your workforce. If you're paying them anyway and they're sitting at home, or if they're sitting at home and they want to get some credentials, we will aid them over this time period to do so. Fall protection has been asked for, trenching has been asked for, and if you guys have any other questions, please just send us a quick note, and we'll try to offer that. With no more questions, you also have on your piece, stay! Do not get closer to me than you are. With no other questions, I see Adam Osha's got his hand up. There is a chat button within this thing too, and you can quickly just send us a chat. But Adam Osha has a question out there. Adam, what's your question today?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Was that your question?
No, my question is, I was late to listening on the first little bits of the call here, and since you're a politician, I figured I'd have you send it back around. What about, hotspots? I know there's no direct answer to this, but you spoke to some of it. When you talk about hotspots in Chittenden County, and construction and the date of 4/15, can we just go through that one more time?
Yeah, it's one, we are holding hard, as hard as we can, and admin is holding as hard as they can, that 4/15 date or before, and I don't wanna say before, that 4/15 date is a date we're all shooting for to start and get things somewhat back to normal in the construction world. If we have to make allowances for that to happen, if we have to make allowances for that to happen, one of the conversations is to allow construction across the board and not allow it inside of Chittenden County. Chittenden County has, in a week, has tripled the amount of people that are infected there. The state, inside of a week, has actually doubled up from 90, I think it was 75 actually, but I'll say 90 to 190 today, thereabouts. In 10 days, this epidemic or pandemic has increased tenfold, and our deaths have doubled since Monday.
One other question on the same, because you've answered my question there. One other question is just some clarification on the Commerce Department. I guess I would call it the submissions of appeal to the Commerce Department from the towns, just so, I guess this is just more for me. As I understand it, the town is the entity that completes the petition form or appeal form, for lack of a better term.
Let me try
And
to,
then that was sent to the Commerce Department, and it's between the town and the Commerce Department.
let me try to help you.
Or not the town, but the project owner in the Commerce Department.
Yeah, let me try to help you there just a little bit. There is no, if we looked at this deep into the weeds, there is no ability for anybody to actually say, you're critical, you're not critical, you're critical, you're not critical. All they're saying or defining through the Commerce Department right now is that you do qualify as a critical entity, okay? And they're qualifying you based on your SIC code or NAICS number, which you're far more educated in than I am, because they've predetermined this list of codes that do qualify as critical providers. Then, and I'm going to just use this as an example, the town of Chester has the March road problem, spring roads, muddy roads, whatever, and they need material delivered or material made to provide for that. If the town of Chester turns and says for critical relief or asks for material to be trucked in, all they've got to do is put a request into the contractor or the mine site that this is for critical relief, and that's how that process is actually working.
So from a contractor standpoint, I guess, did they ever fill out this thing that goes to the Commerce Department? Or is it just the owner, in this case would be the town of Chester, that completes that and sends it in? I guess what I'm trying to drill down on is if a contractor feels they're on a critical project, who sends that into the Commerce Department outside of the SIC codes and AIS crap? Who sends that in?
So that is being filled, and I'll just walk you through it. So that's being filled out by say a contractor or whatever, but every contractor that's filling it out is using their construction code or their mining code, and they're being sent back this generated email that says, well, that's good you filled out our letter, but review the list of exempted businesses, which the contractor isn't on. So, or construction isn't on. So within that piece, what I'm trying to tell you is nobody is probably filling that out for a critical response. That's what's happening. A critical response is being dealt with just as a critical response. The local town is asking for a contractor or an aggregate producer to produce that aggregate or whatever it is, and to bring it to their site, or they're picking it up. When they're doing that, they have to have the COVID protocols in place.
Okay,
Okay?
I'm going to mute.
Okay. Anybody else with a quick question, and I'll turn this over? Okay, again, our rapid response team, you can text us at 802-793-5659 or call us at 229-9189. Attendees today, we got a fairly good crowd of them. I know Tess is in there, and Tess, I'll make your mic live, and then I'll walk away from this.
I'm here.
Oh, too good.
Oh, you're, okay. So I'm gonna mute everybody else, and that just meant you went mute. And now, Tess, you should be back with us.
I am here, yes.
Okay. I'm going, just give me half a second here. I'm gonna clear all my infected notes and everything else. Matt and I are sharing the same production studio, so as I pivot this way, he will come in from the other way, because we're practicing our safe distancing.
Thank God for that.
Oh. Can you do it? There you go.
You got it. Well, it's been quite a couple of weeks. I want to thank everybody for staying tuned to AGC. I just want to give a big thanks to Richard Wabi. It's really, really hard to describe what I witnessed over the last 2 weeks. We're talking to someone that's got very little sleep, is generally on the phone till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and I know that he's working at 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's when I start seeing the emails bounce around. So all of us over here, myself included, our lobbying team, Heather, Tess, and Emma, we're all working really hard for you, and it's a really challenging time, and we want to be there for you. So that's what we're doing today, and what we're going to talk about now.
Remember, Bar Hill Distillery, man.
Bar Hill Distillery. I will be stopping by there after work today to get hand sanitizer. So anyway, there's been a lot of stuff that's going on, and you as employers and or staff are trying to figure out what's going on. And over the past couple of weeks, our legislature here in Vermont has been meeting remotely, working out rules so that they are able to function as a government. This week we've been getting some good bills out that we're going to talk about today. Our federal government has been working very hard. There are 3 different major packages, and I do hear that there could be a 4th package coming down the line anytime now, because this is a moving target. We don't know where we're going, because every time we peel back the onion a little bit on this challenge, we find something else unexpected. As Richard said, you know, unlike Irene, where you could see the water in the rivers, we don't see the water here. We're dealing with things as they come. So to jump in, and I'll stop in the middle to take questions what's between 2 different policies. We're going to talk about first the Families First Coronavirus Act. And this will make sure I have my screen shared here. So the first Families Coronavirus Act is an expansion on the federal leave program, and it adds a pay component to it to deal with fallout from the coronavirus. There's a couple of different ways that this program works. Number one, you have people that become sick, so a sick employee. This is someone also is a full-time worker. There are some guidelines in terms of hours, et cetera, and time on the job. In general, what that would provide is up to 80 hours of a full pay by the employer while that person was to take leave if they in fact are sick, are experiencing symptoms of COVID, are put on quarantine or isolation because of a doctor, state, or federal order. And this also starts with the first 2 weeks they don't get paid. So the first 2 weeks the employee leaves for COVID, they can either use accrued sick leave, personal time off, or vacation time to get paid for those, but the following 80 hours would be paid by the employer. So we're going to talk a little bit later in the next part about what the federal stimulus is for businesses, because the government doesn't expect you to just foot this bill for paid time off at this point. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. There are some different tax credits that are available for this. The other side of this is another program for leave, which is for family leave. So if you're going to care for a loved one that was an immediate family member, or, and this is one that we really want to pay attention to, a child is home from school because school is closed due to the coronavirus. Most of you probably noticed today, and if I'm telling you, if I'm the first person to tell you today, school is now closed. There will be no return to school in the spring of 2020. That was announced this morning. So it's probably time for you to take inventory of who in your organization may be out, who might be having to take this paid leave and move on. It is something that's important to think about because these things are going to happen relatively quickly. So I would get in touch with my human resource department right now and figure out a strategy. I think it's going to be a little complicated depending on the size of your company and what you do or don't know about folks that are in your organizations, but you do have to start figuring out how you're going to deal with that because kids aren't going back to school. This policy relates to businesses with less than 500 employees. If you have 500 or more employees, there's different laws that affect your business. This is for businesses with less than 500 employees. So the other part of this is businesses with less than 50 employees could potentially get a waiver to the paid leave program if in fact they're able to show that there would be a financial hardship that would cause the business to not be viable. And there's going to be a weight test for that. And I understand that it's going to be a hard bar to reach due to some of the other stimulus package elements. But that if it would sink your business, it's worth the phone call to see, and it may be DOL that you would call to figure out how or if you can get an exemption to this. So, Tess, do you want to add anything on the leave program?
Sure. So one other component of the paid sick leave and the paid family leave is that anything to do with medical, the reason you're out is to care for someone who's sick, yourself is sick, you've been quarantined, I do believe will require some kind of healthcare provider's verification, not just the employee saying, I think I have it. And just lost my train of thought, sorry. Oh, there is the tax credit component where if you are paying employees out on this type of leave, yes, you have to put the money out now, but you will be eligible for a dollar for dollar tax credit in the future. And again, for some reason, I just lost my train of thought on that topic, and I'm sorry, I can't remember it. It'll come back to me.
That's all right. I think we covered it. So I'm going to go ahead, unless you have anything else on this one, I'm going to open it up for questions on the paid family leave portion. All right. Does anybody have any questions on that first part? Very clear? Okay, good. Well, we can move on. So, all right, I think we're good. Tess, are you on? Tess, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I turn your mic back on.
Oh, I know what the other comment was, Matt, real
Oh,
quick.
okay.
There's a cap on the dollar amount you have to pay out to per employee.
Correct.
There's a cap on the amount. So it's not just like any dollar amount the employee makes no matter what. There is a cap for the paid sick leave and the family leave. Sorry.
Yep, no, that makes sense. Absolutely. Thank you. So we'll move on a little bit into our next portion here, which is, so the first part's really for, talking about if you have a sick individual who has to go home, or if you have an employee that has to go care for a loved one. This next part, we're going to start talking, and I'm going to skip over the CARES Act just for a minute, although we have some good news there, and just talk a little bit about one of the major components to Vermont legislation that came out recently. One of the things I've been getting a lot of telephone calls about here at AGC are questions related to, is me being forced to lay people off due to the stop work order, am I going to have my employer rating affected as a result of having to do temporary layoffs or layoffs in general? If you're going to, the state has passed a bill that if you're going to bring your people back, you have an 8-week period that may be expanded if this outbreak continues, but for now it's written for 8 weeks, that your employer rating will not be affected as a result to a layoff that has an employee come back. Tess, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's totally accurate.
Okay, good. I'm doing better than I did this morning. So the next part to that, and this is, I just want to take a second and go to a personal note here. One of the major things that I've been working on for the last 2 years here with AGC is workforce development, and I'm very aware that our workforce is, we wish that we had more people out there, and I often use the statistic of around 1,500 to 2,000 people we're probably short among all of our member companies when I do a poll. One of the things that's important to remember, that we want to take care of our folks that are out there. We want to make sure that they feel comfortable to come back to us, come back to this industry, come back to your company. We want to make sure that as we go through this time, we're thinking about those workforce, we're thinking about our workforce, how this is affecting them. We want to stay in contact with them, message them, let them know that you care. And in some cases, people are going to want to continue to either keep people on where they can or find ways to make those people right financially. The other side of the coin that I wanted to bring up is that we're currently still looking at an April 15th return to work. So I hope everyone can hold together until at least we get closer to April 15th, or we get any kind of other notice from the administration or government, because we don't want to go into mass layoffs if we can avoid it. We don't want to lose our workforce. We want them to come back. They're the lifeblood of our industry. If they don't come back when we're allowed to go to work, then we're going to have another major problem. So that's my public service announcement before I get into the rest of this. So I just brought up an employer may want to make things right financially with their person, because when you go on unemployment in Vermont, unemployment is half of your salary or half your wages cut, and it maxes out at about $450 per week. So the question had been asked, can an employer make up the difference in pay? If I'm paying $800, can I fill up that additional $400 gap? Well, the answer is yes, but with a caveat that in order for you to make up the difference, DOL requires that you have to do it through an IRS approved supplemental insurance program, which I understand not many people are involved with. So that's probably not going to be an avenue that people go down unless you do have one of those programs in place at which point you can make the decision as the employer what you want to do with your staff there. But through the CARES Act, the federal government has helped you out with that little problem. And how they've helped you out with that problem was they realized that a bunch of people in Vermont, we have a 50% unemployment. Some states have less. So what the federal government has decided to do was a across the board $600 per week unemployment insurance stipend for people that are unemployed up to 4 months. And that was something that our Senator Bernie Sanders fought very hard for on the floor of the Senate. And they went into the night, I believe Thursday night, test, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was either Wednesday night or Thursday night, and they were able to successfully keep, Bernie was successful in keeping that in. And, you know, I think the reasoning that people put that through was that when you realize that the economy and the number of workers, I think across the country we're at about 3.5 million new unemployment claims, and in Vermont we're seeing levels of unemployment claims come in that mirror the Great Recession in the 1980s. If you take half of that money away from the economy, that's not only a challenge for the economy to return, but you're also talking about people having to make the decision between the food they eat, keeping their house warm, keeping the electricity on, although there are some exemptions for those disconnections. So the other part of this is expands unemployment insurance to contractors, self-employed, and nonprofit government employees who are not typically eligible. It also allowed 13 weeks on top of the state standard. So if the state had a 26-week program, it extends it out to 39 weeks. And I think this is all going to be a moving target. Like I said, I think there's likely going to be a fourth bill that comes out of the federal government because as they peel this onion back, they're finding more things that are getting left on the floor and potentially longer term impacts. You think of some of the other business verticals that are out there. You know, ours, when we get back to work this summer, we're likely going to have a good bulk of the same work to do. Think about some of those folks in other businesses like real estate, for example, where if you lose the spring market, it's just gone for the year. So we're lucky in that sense. So I'm just going to take a pause really quick. Tess, anything you want to add to what I just went through?
I'm not gonna add a single thing to the comments about Bernie Sanders fighting for anything, so I'll leave that one alone. Because apparently the Dems also got 25 million in the package for the Kennedy Center, and all of us are baffled how they got that, so.
Yeah, well, you know, the arts. So we'll leave that alone for today.
I have a question, Matt.
Yeah.
This is Diane Percy.
Yes.
Is this on top of their regular unemployment, the $600, and do they have to do anything to get that $600? Or is this automatic when they are on unemployment?
So I can tell you that they get that on top of, so they'll have $1,000 a week if they have the maximum. If they're at the maximum of $400, they will then get $600. There'll be some from the state, and I don't know if it's going to get funneled through the state's DOL or if you're going to get a separate check from the Treasury. My gut tells me they probably would likely flow it through the state, but according to Tess, they just barely passed this out, so some of the rules are still being discussed at our Senate Economic Development Committee, so we're going to give you more information as that comes out. Tess, did you add to that?
Sure. So yes, it is on top of your regular unemployment that each state provides. So, and that applies to part-time employees too. They get a lesser amount in unemployment if the conditions under which they employed make them eligible for unemployment. They will also get the $600, as will self-employed and nonprofit and government employees. And it isn't clear whether it's going to come directly with your check or a separate check, but when you apply for unemployment, you are automatically signed up for this. And the benefit only lasts for 4 months. This is not ongoing, whereas other changes to unemployment law go through the end of the year and possibly longer, but this $600 does not.
So I also want to give a user notice. When you're typing in comments, sometimes I'm moving around. We're just getting used to this AGC TV or whatever you want to call it. So if I do miss one of your questions, we're still going to open up the microphone for questions. And if I do ultimately miss it, I'll respond to you afterwards. It's not that I'm ignoring you. It's that I'm trying to get a lot of information out. And this is all new to us. This is something that we've put together over the last couple of weeks. So I'm just going to open up that chat real quick. You are all unmuted at the moment. Does anybody else have any questions as we've gone through so far? Tess, I think we're doing a very good job explaining today. So, all right, I'm going to mute everybody again. Oh, whoops. All right. So, we've talked a little bit about what happens if an employee gets sick or has to deal with a loved one. We've talked a little bit about what happens if you have to make that difficult decision to let people go on unemployment, on layoff. The next thing we got to talk about is how the government is looking after you, or one of the ways that they're looking after you in these challenging times. So
Hey,
the first,
Matt?
yep,
Matt,
yep.
before you go on unemployment, I received 3 answers back from Jessica Vintner at the Department of Labor. They
Okay,
were based on questions your members had this morning,
sure.
and I literally just got them back. And one of your members asked if an employee has to use vacation time prior to UI benefits. And the shorter answer is yes, they do. Okay?
Yep.
The next question was, can an employer reduce hours for an employee and the employee receives unemployment, as a partial payment, since their hours were cut? And again, the short answer is yes, they would be applying for partial unemployment. I don't know the details of how that works, but I do know that you can do that. And the next one is, because of the implementation or effective date of the Families First bill is April 1st, employers were wondering about employees that went on sick leave in March related to COVID-19. And again, Jessica's short answer is yes. Their interpretation is that for employees that went on sick leave due to COVID-19 related, the employer who paid them sick leave will be eligible for those tax benefits. I can't explain the details as to how right now, and she did clarify that those are the short, simple answers, but I hope some of that information helps.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And again, I do want to thank Tess and our lobbying team. The 4 of us have been wading through about 2,200 pages worth of legislation from the feds, and we are on the phone, on web conferences, watching what's going on, still continuing to lobby at the state level, still continuing to reach out and work with our legislators and administration. So again, thank you very much, Tess, and we're lucky to have you. Thank you.
Matt, you
Yep.
have 2 questions.
I know, I saw that. One question was, is this $600 a loan to be paid, or is this just free money? And the answer is no, this is not a loan that's going out to the employees. It's not a loan that's going out to the employer. But let's be real, when the government spends money, it's really coming from somewhere. So that's going to get paid somehow, some way. Unless Tess has another idea, it's going to be through taxes.
No, I actually have an answer to the next question too, because Jessica just sent me an update. So real quick, on the $600, it is not classified a loan. However, it is pay. It is considered income and will be taxed the same as your UI is. However, the $600 will not impact eligibility for different programs. For example, Medicaid. So if you have a low-income employee who qualifies for Medicaid, this is not going to compound their income and make them ineligible.
Good. And the second question was, please elaborate on using vacation before unemployment. They have to be paid all available vacation time before they are eligible for unemployment benefits. That's a yes. When someone goes to apply for unemployment, one of the questions in the form that they're required to fill out are, do you have unused time off, and are you paid for vacation? And so that will get paid prior to them getting a check cut by UI. I don't know how that relates to the federal monies. I would guess that it's in the same bucket.
And Matt, I had a clarifying answer from Jessica that sort of contradicts what she said to me, if I could read it.
Okay, wait, what? Someone contradicted themselves?
Yeah. Hey, Jessica has been awesome and she's been a huge resource, so I don't want to diss her at all. She's really been amazing. But here is her answer. Employees do not have to use vacation time before they file for benefits. However, in some cases, it will be beneficial for an employee to do so because vacation time is paid at 100% of their hourly wage, whereas UI is only up to 57% of their weekly wage. In most cases, we are seeing employees choose to use their vacation time first, but it is up to them. The max on the weekly wage is $513. So vacation time is considered wages, so if an individual files a claim while on vacation, the wages they are receiving will be discarded at 50%. And I'm not quite sure what all that means, but it sounds to me like it's another one of those, it's not cut and dried clear if you have to use vacation time. And I would urge people to check with the Department of Labor. Sorry for any confusion, but those were back-to-back emails I got in the last 15 minutes.
So folks on the call, if you're seeing this, this is what we've been dealing with for the last 2 weeks. We just found out that the CARES Act passed while Richard was speaking. So this stuff is happening on a very fluid basis. And I mean, I called the US Department of Labor regarding the Family Leave Act program, and they absolutely had no idea how to answer the questions and referred me to a frequently asked questions document that at the time that I looked at it had a total of 4 questions, and they were ridiculously easy to answer questions. So this stuff, we're wading in our charted territory with all this stuff. Things have changed a little bit, and we're going to continue to do these updates. We're going to continue to build our guidance documents on the website as we have. So just be aware that more is coming.
Hey, Rick, Matt, I'll also just add to that, and I'm not one who typically always defends, state government and all the procedure, but normally when laws on labor or anything else in agriculture in any single category of industry are passed, a rulemaking procedure occurs that usually takes a minimum of 6 months. In the case of these bills coming through, Department of Labor and commerce agencies are being given on average about 48 hours to get something out. These employees are literally working round the clock right now, and they don't do everything perfectly, and sometimes they have to retract statements, and yeah, it takes a bit of patience, that's all.
Which is why we're going to come back to you as often as possible. Brenda had another question here, and Tess, so a statement which is that, except that the state is forgetting the additional impact that this has on a company, they're forced to shut down, lose business, and have to pay additional wages. I certainly understand where you're coming from, and I know that it's not probably going to, make anyone feel better, but we're not the only people that are dealing with this right now. This is across the board, and we have some great people that are trying to work on this. Jason, you're asking us to elaborate on using the vacation before employment. Employees with planned or typically in summer month are now gone per Fed using their vacation for COVID. How is that fair? I don't know if that's a question. I will take that with you offline if you don't mind. With that said, any other questions? And we're going to get to the stimulus package part. All right. Oh, wait. So I'm realizing you were all muted when I said, are there any questions? You are now
Hey, Matt,
unmuted.
for callback question,
Yep.
you know, all callback dates are suspended to the best of my knowledge right now.
Okay. All right. Any verbal questions? You're all unmuted. Okay, let's move on to the stimulus. So, first one is a Small Business Administration program. This is going to operate very similar to how the SBA did back during Irene. You'll still go into your lending institutions that have a relationship with the SBA, and if you qualify for the loans, you'll be able to get them. This first part, the economic injury disaster loans, there's a number of loans that you have. One in particular is the economic injury disaster loan. And what this loan, what this establishes is an emergency grant to allow a business that applies for it to receive an advance on the loan for no more than $10,000. The reason why this is here is because liquidity is a challenge. In our business, we have a differing business model than maybe some of the restaurants and retail stores that depend on daily income, but we do have to meet payroll on a regular basis for our staff that is working. And what this would do is it gives you that $10,000 and within 3 days, if the money was to be used for COVID-19 related sick leave, mortgage or rent, other overhead expense, the grants would be awarded on a first come, first served basis until $10 billion is exhausted, and applicants would not have to repay the money even if they're denied the loan. I think that's kind of a big deal. So visit the SBA, Small Business Administration, if you have any more questions regarding those, or come back here where we will likely continue to expand on this reporting for you. There's going to be loan forgiveness for certain small business loans. Employers may be eligible for a portion of their small federal loans to be forgiven tax-free for amounts spent on personal sick leave, family leave, or other overhead expenses as a result, and that's anytime between February 15th and June 6th, as well as certain other debt obligations that could be occurred prior to February 15th. So, additional Small Business Administration loan payments will pay the principal, interest, and any associated fees that are currently owed on 7A loans, 504 loans, or microloans. This would be for a 6-month period, starting on the next payment due date. Loans that are already on deferment would include an additional 6 months deferral payment by the SBA, beginning with the next payment. Retirement account withdrawals. So people have the opportunity to withdraw money from a 401k or other like accounts that would have had a penalty up to $100,000 in 2020 without paying any penalties if the person, their spouse, or dependent are diagnosed with SARS or the COVID-19 or are experiencing adverse financial consequences as a result of being quarantined, furloughed, layoff, or reduced work hours. So it's just another Band-Aid for us there that you can dip into your retirement, although that's not ideal. Student loan interest deferral. Federal students who loan borrowers would not be required to make any payment through September 30th. During this time, no interest on those loans would occur. Payment suspension applies only to loans held by the Department of Education, not private loans. So be aware that, if you have a private loan from a lending institution, it may or may not fit that criteria. So you want to check with those different lenders if you are involved with them. So there's an income tax break for employees if the employees do get a portion of their student loan paid by their employer. It caps out at $5,250, and they receive it between the enactment of this law and January 1st of 2021. So, deferred Social Security tax. they are giving you a break until December 31st to defer your employer portion of the Social Security tax. This is going to be repaid though. Half of it will be repaid by December 31st of 2021, the other half by December 31st of 2022. So this isn't free money, but they're essentially giving you another loan. Federal tax rebates. This is the Trump personal refund enhancement or COVID money that they talked about. So this is a $1,200 payment for individuals, $2,400 for those filing jointly, and $500 for each child. The rebates will actually be reduced between $75,000 and $150,000 of income, and they are eliminated at $150,000 incomes. Excuse me, $75,000 per filer. So if your combined is $150,000, that would be you would not be eligible. So we already talked about the increased unemployment benefits, and that's again, it's there to make people whole so that they're out spending money, they're able to meet their bills where they can, and we don't go further back into a hole. Let me check real quick on our, I'm not seeing any chat. Tess, before I open it up for a final round of questions, did you have anything you wanted to add to anything I just said?
I was just gonna add the name of the program that's included in the bill because a lot of people asked about it this morning. And the Small Business Administration loan to cover payroll and other expenses. It is called the Paycheck Protection Loan or Paycheck Protection Program. You would apply through your lender affiliated with the Small Business Association, which a lot of lenders in Vermont are. They handle SBA loans. It applies for businesses with under 500 employees. That includes sole proprietors and nonprofits. And it not only includes a loan for your payroll, it includes a loan for rent and utilities for a specified period of time, which is February 15th through June 30th of this year.
Okay. Well, so we've had some exciting stuff to talk about today, and it's not over yet. So we got a question here from Roth. I was wondering if you had any more info on deferment of state taxes, income, estimated property, etc. I don't. Tess, do you know anything about these?
So I know income taxes have to follow the federal lead because Vermont taxes are based on federal. You can't have one without the other. So federal taxes are now deferred. I believe it's filing and payment until July 15th. Quarterly estimated taxes. We do not have an answer on that yet, Roth, but I'm putting it down to get you an answer because Heather may have gotten it off another source. And property taxes. You are going to have to wait for direction from your town is what I've been told so far. And the reason is that because income taxes are delayed, homestead declarations are therefore delayed until July 15th. For a town to calculate their property taxes and know what people have to pay, they need the homestead declarations. So it's sort of a whole ball of items that are all linked together. And so the information on delay of property taxes is not certain yet. There are towns, for example, Montpelier, their property tax payments for the year begin in August. Towns like mine in Woodbury, ours are not due till late October. So our town has some time to figure this out. So I can get back to you on that, but I would also urge you to check with your town since they control those due dates.
Got another question from the audience. So will we be able to have, thank you, Debbie, will we be able to have access to these documents for future reference? Absolutely. So when I get done with this broadcast, I have a webcam on this side. If you've seen me looking over here, it's because I'm recording live on that side. What we're going to do, as we've done with every video, is we're going to go save this to our YouTube channel. We'll upload it to the website, and we're updating this every single time we have one of these, and we're doing these on Wednesdays and Fridays. We'll see a new post that'll have a new video, and we're just adding to a large list of guidance documents. So right now, I want to say we have maybe 15 documents up there, and every time that we get something, we're throwing it in there. And we kind of feel like it's the more information that we can share, the better. So yes, all that stuff will be available on the website, and you will receive an email from us marketing that website. So yes. And you're all not muted now, so if you wanted to ask a question, I will invite a question, anything we've talked about today. If you want to talk about anything that's going on in government, if you want to know what my favorite fishing lure is for spring bass fishing, we can talk about that too. So floor is open. So I'm going to take the silence, as we've done a very good job explaining this today. I think we had a lot more questions this morning, but that helped us get a little bit more prepared for the afternoon session. Tess, is there anything you'd like to add before we get going?
I think I'm all good. I'm trying to constantly update these documents and get more information. If people want to email me, I'll forward everything to Richard and Matt always. So check with them and see if I've added more to these documents and updated with information.
Yeah, just so that we have like some order going on, channel everything in through AGC, and we'll get all these questions answered as they go forward. And the idea is that we want to be the clearinghouse for this information for you. We recognize that this is a really serious time that we're going through. I can't even tell you the number of phone calls that we've been fielding here at the office. People are confused, people are stressed out, people are frustrated with the situation. People just feel like it's not getting any better. I've made the choice that I'm going to work hard for you. Richard's going to work hard for you. Our lobbying team's going to continue to work hard for you. We're still going with our stake in the ground for April 15th. We go to bed every night believing that. We wake up every morning, and we're going to continue to move and push for our association and our members. I thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out for us. As Richard said, you have our hotline. It's 802-229-9189. You can call that. We are fielding phone calls on a regular basis, or you can email either one of us. I'm Matt, M-A-T-T, at agcvt.org, or Richard, RJW, at agcvt.org. So with that, I wanted to thank everybody for coming today. I will go get this all transcribed, get the documents up on our guidance document website, and I look forward to continuing to serve you next week.
Hey, Matt?
Yep.
Matt, I saw Rob had asked a question about taxes, and you asked me to answer that. And I do have a short answer from the Department of Taxes.
Sure.
There are only currently, and this only deals with income taxes, sales and rooms, all that's a different issue. But there are 4 income taxes that are postponed until July 15th. Vermont personal income tax, Vermont homestead declaration and property tax credit claims, corporate income tax, and fiduciary income tax. Fiduciary income tax relates to trusts. Other than that, no other income tax categories have been delayed. Doesn't mean it won't come in the future, but to date, nothing else is delayed.
Well, I hope that answers for you. And thanks again, Tess. I really appreciate the help today, as always. And we will see you all on Wednesday.
Great, thanks.
Have a good one. Thank you for joining us.